Can you imagine this? A poor woman, pregnant with twins, discovers she has aggressive lymphoma, but she refuses treatment, accepting death to protect the two children that the man she loves had coldly declared, "I never want kids because children would make me weak." And that man, Vincent Moretti, the notorious crime boss of Chicago, living in luxurious penthouses, drinking million-dollar whiskey, had no idea that he had abandoned that woman and the two children carrying his blood to years of hunger, cold, illness, and utter despair. Until one fateful afternoon on the Magnificent Mile, when his eyes accidentally caught sight of an old double stroller amid the crowd of luxury, everything turned upside down. Can buried love rise again from the ashes of gnawing remorse? Can power and money ever redeem the years of suffering he caused? And when enemies discover the fatal weakness of the once invincible kingpin, blood will spill, lives will be threatened. Brace yourself, because the story about to begin will shatter your heart. Then mend it with a love so intense it takes your breath away. Before we dive into this chilling and mysterious story, please remember to subscribe to the channel Alex Truths and like this video. Every subscription, like, and share from you is a huge spiritual gift and an incredibly profound source of motivation for the channel's growth, so we can continue bringing wonderful videos every day to everyone. There would be no greater joy than receiving your love and support through the comments you leave right below this video. Comments sharing your emotions, or telling us which province or city you're living and working in while listening to this story. All right, let's continue together and immerse ourselves in this amazing, captivating story that's filled with deep emotions. Vincent Moretti eased back into the butter-soft leather of his armored black Cadillac Escalade as it glided through the late afternoon traffic on Chicago's Magnificent Mile in mid-October 2025. The crisp autumn air carried the faint scent of falling leaves from the mature trees lining the broad sidewalks, and the sun cast long golden shadows across the luxury storefronts, Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Tiffany, where shoppers hurried with bags swinging at their sides. At 42, Vincent, known to most as Vinny, had built an empire that few dared challenge. Fair-skinned with sharp Italian-American features, dark hair just beginning to silver at the temples, and steel-gray eyes that missed nothing, he commanded respect and fear in equal measure throughout the city. His world was one of power, calculated risks, and absolute control. Beside him sat Isabella Rossi, his current companion of 4 months, a stunning 29-year-old brunette with perfectly styled waves cascading over her shoulders, designer sunglasses perched on her nose even in the fading light. She wore a fitted black dress that hugged her figure, her laughter light and carefree as she scrolled through her phone. "The restaurant has a 3-month wait list," she said, glancing at her reflection in the visor mirror. "I still can't believe you got us a table tonight at Alinea." Vincent allowed a small smile, his focus on the road ahead. Money opened doors. That was a lesson he'd learned young. Owning stakes in half the city's construction unions and underground gambling rings meant reservations were never a problem. "Perks of knowing the right people," he replied, his voice deep and measured. Isabella laughed again, reaching over to touch his arm. "You make everything seem so easy." Easy. That was what Vincent had craved after years of chaos. Rising through the ranks, navigating betrayals, building an unbreakable network. His relationship with Isabella was uncomplicated. Beauty, independence, no demands for a future he wasn't prepared to give. At his age, he'd seen too many associates fall because of family vulnerabilities. Children were leverage. Love was weakness. He'd been clear about that from the start. The traffic light ahead turned red, and his driver brought the Escalade to a smooth stop at the bustling crosswalk near Michigan Avenue and Oak Street. Pedestrians streamed across, office workers heading home, couples holding hands, tourists snapping photos of the historic water tower in the distance. Vincent watched them idly, his mind already shifting to the union negotiations he'd just wrapped, when something drew his gaze sharper. A woman was crossing carefully through the crowd, pushing a double stroller, a sturdy up-a-baby Vista, its large canopy shielding two toddlers bundled in soft blankets against the October chill. Her auburn hair was tied back in a practical ponytail, strands escaping around her tired face. She moved with the cautious grace of someone carrying the most precious cargo, thin shoulders hunched slightly under a worn coat that had seen better days. The stroller's wheels navigated the uneven crosswalk pavement with practiced ease. Vincent's breath caught in his throat. Even from this distance, even with her head bowed to check on the children, he knew that profile. The gentle curve of her neck, the way she held herself with quiet determination. Sarah Whitaker. His ex from exactly 2 years ago. The woman he'd walked away from when she began talking about settling down, about a family someday. Sarah paused midway across as one toddler began to fuss, a little boy with dark hair peeking out. She shifted the stroller handle to one hand and reached in gently, murmuring something soothing that quieted him almost instantly. The girl beside him stirred but settled again. Toddlers, 18 months old, maybe more. The timing was perfect. Vincent's hands tightened on the armrest, his knuckles whitening. 2 years ago, when they'd parted, Sarah hadn't said a word about being pregnant. But the math lined up exactly. Twins. His twins? "You look like you've seen a ghost," Isabella said, her voice pulling him back as she studied his face with mild concern. The light had turned green, horns blared faintly behind them. His driver waited for a signal. Vincent blinked, forcing his gaze forward as the Escalade accelerated smoothly. Sarah and the stroller disappeared into the crowd on the opposite sidewalk, swallowed by the flow of pedestrians. But the image seared into his mind. Those two small faces, the boy's dark eyes that might mirror his own, the girl's delicate features echoing Sarah's. His chest tightened with a storm he couldn't name, guilt crashing against denial, remorse twisting like a knife. He'd been brutally honest with Sarah back then. His life was too dangerous for children. Family made you vulnerable. Rivals would exploit it. He'd told her he couldn't give her the domestic dream she deserved, that he needed freedom to run his empire without ties that could be used against him. She'd listened quietly, nodded, and the next day agreed they wanted different things. No drama, no pleas, just acceptance. The cleanest breakup he'd ever had. But now, seeing her with those children, looking so utterly alone yet fiercely protective, Vincent felt the ground shift beneath him. Sarah, poor, struggling Sarah, whom he'd left to chase his uncomplicated life, had built something profound without him. And if those toddlers were his, God, if they were his. The Escalade pulled into the valet at the restaurant, but Vincent barely registered the opulent entrance or Isabella's excited chatter about the menu. His world of power, wealth, and control suddenly felt hollow. Why hadn't she told him? Had she known and chosen silence to protect him, or them, from his dangerous world? Or had she discovered it after and decided he didn't deserve to know? As he handed his keys to the valet, one question gnawed at him with violent intensity. What if the life he'd fought so hard to protect, the one without complications, was the emptiest one imaginable? From Sarah's perspective, that same afternoon had been another grind in an endless string of them. At 33, she was bone-tired, her body thin from too many skipped meals and sleepless nights. Her waitressing shift at a rundown diner in Humboldt Park had ended at 3, followed by picking up Liam and Ava from the subsidized daycare she could barely afford. The double stroller was her lifeline, secondhand but reliable, loaded with a diaper bag stuffed with generic formula and thrift store clothes. The October wind whipped through her threadbare coat as she pushed the stroller across the busy, Magnificent Mile crosswalk, hurrying to catch the bus home. Luxury cars idled around her, their occupants worlds away from her reality. Eviction notices piling up, electricity bills overdue, nights shivering in a drafty apartment because heat cost too much. Liam fussed, hungry again, and Ava whimpered in sympathy. Sarah's heart ached with the familiar mix of love and desperation. These two were her everything, born into poverty she'd never escaped. She hummed softly to calm them, oblivious to the black Escalade stopped at the light, oblivious to the gray eyes fixed on her with shattering recognition. Her life was survival, double shifts, food stamps, praying the twins stayed healthy because doctor's visits meant choosing between medicine and rent. Humiliating, pitiful, unfair, but hers. As she reached the sidewalk, a wave of dizziness hit. Exhaustion, low blood sugar, the cold seeping in. She paused, gripping the stroller handle until the world steadied, tears pricking her eyes at the absurdity of it all. So close to the glittering wealth around her, yet so impossibly far. Little did she know, in that fleeting moment, everything was about to change. Vincent Moretti stood alone in the vast living room of his Gold Coast penthouse, high above Lake Michigan, the city lights of Chicago glittering like cold diamonds far below. It was late October 2025, and the wind off the lake rattled the floor-to-ceiling windows with a restless howl. The dinner at Alinea had been a blur, courses he could not taste, wine that might as well have been water, Isabella's animated conversation drifting past him like smoke. He had made polite excuses, dropped her at her River North condo, and come home early, claiming a headache from the union negotiations. But it was no headache. It was Sarah Whitaker, pushing that double stroller across the magnificent mile, two small faces bundled against the autumn chill. The image had burned itself behind his eyelids, refusing to fade. He poured 3 fingers of Macallan 25-year scotch into a heavy crystal tumbler, the amber liquid catching the low light from the modern chandelier overhead. The penthouse was silent except for the wind and the distant hum of the city. Marble floors, custom Italian furniture, original Warhol on the walls. Everything chosen for clean lines and uncluttered luxury. This was the life he had built. No complications, no vulnerabilities, no one who could be used against him. He had told himself it was freedom. Now it felt like a tomb. Vincent sank into the deep leather armchair facing the windows, the glass cold against his palm. 2 years ago, he had ended things with Sarah, cleanly, honestly. She had been 29 then, quiet and kind, working double shifts as a waitress and cleaner to keep her head above water. He had met her by chance at a corner diner in Humboldt Park, drawn to her gentle green eyes and the weary strength in her smile. For 8 months they had dated, quiet dinners, walks along the lakefront when his schedule allowed, nights in her tiny apartment because she was too proud to come to his world of excess. Then she had started talking about the future, about wanting a home, stability, children someday. Vincent had felt the walls close in. Children in his world? Impossible. They would be targets, rival crews, federal investigations, old grudges. He had laid it out plainly one rainy night in her kitchen. I can't give you that life, Sarah. My world doesn't allow it. Family makes you weak. I won't put kids in danger, and I won't pretend I can be the man you deserve. She had listened without tears, her thin hands wrapped around a chipped coffee mug. The next morning she had agreed they wanted different things. No scenes, no begging, just a quiet goodbye at her door. He had walked away believing it was merciful for both of them. But now, twins. 18 months old, the timing exact. Vincent's chest tightened until breathing hurt. If they were his, and God help him, he knew in his gut they were. Sarah had carried them alone, birthed them alone, raised them alone in whatever poverty she could not escape. While he lived in this palace of glass and steel, drinking $1,000 scotch, she had struggled. The thought clawed at him with violent remorse. He had left her to that fate because he was afraid. afraid of weakness, afraid of love. He set the glass down harder than intended, the crystal ringing against the marble table. His reflection stared back from the dark window, successful, powerful, untouchable, and utterly empty. Across the city, in a crumbling third-floor walk-up in Humboldt Park, Sarah Whitaker finally got Liam and Ava to sleep after an hour of rocking and hushed lullabies. The apartment was freezing. The ancient radiator clanked but gave little heat. She pulled the single threadbare blanket tighter over the twins in their shared secondhand crib, kissing each forehead softly. They were all she had, these two beautiful miracles who had come into the world against every odd. Sarah was so thin her collarbones stood out sharply beneath her faded sweater. Her auburn hair hung limp, unwashed for days because hot water was rationed. Dark circles shadowed her eyes from endless night shifts at the diner and morning cleaning jobs in downtown office buildings. The refrigerator held half a jar of generic peanut butter, a few slices of bread, and formula mixed with tap water. Eviction papers lay unopened on the counter. Another 30 days, then nowhere to go. She sank onto the sagging couch, pulling her knees to her chest against the cold that seeped through the thin walls. The wind moaned outside, rattling the single-pane windows. Tears came silently, as they often did in these quiet moments after the twins slept. She was 23 when she met Vincent Moretti, dazzled by his intensity, his protectiveness, the way he made her feel safe for the first time in her hardscrabble life. He had never brought her into his dangerous world, always meeting on neutral ground, but she had known who he was. Everyone in certain Chicago circles did. When she discovered she was pregnant with twins weeks after their breakup, she had sat in the free clinic bathroom and cried until she thought her heart would stop. Telling him would have meant dragging innocent babies into a life of bodyguards and threats. Not telling him meant doing it alone, losing the apartment she had then, moving twice to cheaper places, skipping meals so the twins could eat, enduring the humiliation of food pantry lines and Medicaid paperwork. She had chosen alone. Now, exhaustion pulled at her like gravity. She closed her eyes, Vincent's face flashing unbidden, those steel gray eyes that once looked at her like she was the only thing worth protecting. She had loved him fiercely, hopelessly, and he had walked away because children were too dangerous in his world. Sarah curled tighter on the couch, shivering. The unfairness of it all pressed down until she could barely breathe. She was 29 now, but felt 50. Her body ached from carrying the double stroller up 3 flights of stairs, from scrubbing floors on her knees, from nights when the heat failed and she held the twins against her to keep them warm. She had no family left, no savings, no hope of anything better. In the silence, a sudden noise outside made her heart leap, tires screeching on the street below, raised voices in the alley. She froze, breath shallow. This neighborhood wasn't safe. Break-ins happened, arguments spilled into gunfire too often. She crept to the window, peering through the torn curtain. 2 black SUVs idled at the curb, men in dark coats talking heatedly. One gestured sharply toward a third vehicle pulling away fast. Sarah's pulse raced. She recognized the posture of the men, hard, watchful. Vincent's world. Had he seen her today? The black Escalade at the Crosswalk. Had that been him? A wave of dizziness hit her, the room tilting. She gripped the windowsill, nausea rising. If he knew about the twins. No, he couldn't. And if he did, what then? Pity? Money? Or worse, trying to take them into his dangerous life? Downstairs, a door slammed. Footsteps echoed in the hall. Sarah backed away from the window, heart pounding so hard her vision blurred. She checked the flimsy chain lock on her door, then returned to sit beside the crib, one hand on each sleeping child. Their soft breathing was the only steady thing in her world. Across the city, Vincent stood abruptly, pacing the penthouse like a caged animal. The remorse was turning into something sharper. Panic, perhaps. He had built walls of power and wealth to keep weakness out, but tonight those walls felt like prison bars. Sarah, gentle, proud Sarah, was suffering because of choices he had made. And if those children were his blood? He stopped at the window, pressing his palm to the cold glass. The lake stretched black and endless below. For the first time in years, Vincent Moretti felt something close to fear. Not of rivals or law enforcement, but of the emptiness he had chosen. The wind howled louder, as if echoing the violent storm beginning in both their hearts. Hers of exhaustion and guarded hope, his of gnawing guilt and the first terrifying sparks of a love he had thought himself incapable of feeling again. Neither slept that night. The city held its breath between them, waiting for what came next. The next morning broke cold and gray over Chicago, the October wind whipping down the canyons of the Loop as Vincent Moretti sat in the back of his Escalade, staring at his phone without seeing the screen. He had not slept. The scotch had done nothing to quiet the storm inside him. Guilt that gnawed like acid, remorse that twisted deeper with every heartbeat, and beneath it all, a violent, terrifying surge of something he had long buried: love. Not the casual affection he felt for Isabella, but the fierce, consuming kind he had once felt for Sarah Whitaker. The kind that made a man reckless. He could not let it go. He had to know. Vincent dialed a number he rarely used for personal matters. Tommy Russo answered on the second ring, voice low and alert. "Boss?" "I need something quiet," Vincent said, keeping his tone even. "No tales, no photos of kids, just background. Sarah Whitaker. Lives somewhere in Humboldt Park now, I think. Find out where, what she's doing, anything about children. Be invisible." Tommy hesitated only a fraction. "Got it. 24 hours? Make it 12. Vincent ended the call and leaned back, closing his eyes. The remorse was becoming unbearable. He pictured Sarah as he had last seen her yesterday. Thin coat, exhausted posture, pushing that stroller through traffic like a shield against the world. While he slept in Egyptian cotton sheets on a bed that cost more than most people's yearly rent, she had been, what? Shivering in some freezing apartment? Skipping meals so the twins could eat? The thought tore at him with fresh violence. He had left her to that because he was afraid of vulnerability. And now, if those children were his, he had abandoned his own blood. Across the city, Sarah stood in the cramped bathroom of her walk-up, splashing cold water on her face to stay awake. The mirror showed a stranger, cheeks hollow, eyes sunken, skin pale from too many nights without proper rest. The twins were still asleep in their crib, mercifully, after a night of coughing from the damp chill that seeped through every crack. She had wrapped them in every blanket she owned, including her own thin coat, and sat shivering on the floor beside them until dawn. Her shift at the office building downtown started in 2 hours. She would clean toilets and empty trash for minimum wage, plus whatever tips the night security guards sometimes slipped her out of pity. Last night's diner shift had ended with a table of drunk customers stiffing her on a $40 check. $40 that would have bought formula and diapers for a week. Sarah leaned against the sink, a wave of dizziness washing over her. The room tilted. She gripped the porcelain until her knuckles whitened. Hunger, exhaustion, fear, it all blurred together into a constant ache. She whispered a silent prayer that the daycare would take the twins late again today, that the bus would not break down, that the landlord would not knock with another late notice. Quiet moments like this were dangerous. In the stillness, the unfairness rose like bile. Why her? Why did everything always fall apart just when she thought she could breathe? She had worked so hard. 2 jobs, no complaints, pride swallowed daily, and still she was drowning. Tears came hot and sudden, but she dashed them away. No time for self-pity. Liam and Ava needed her strong. By early afternoon, Tommy Russo called back from a burner phone. Vincent took the call in his private office overlooking the river, door locked, City sprawling below like a kingdom he ruled without joy. "Found her," Tommy said carefully. 1247 North Humboldt Boulevard. 3rd floor walk-up. Building's a dump. Heat barely works. Super doesn't fix anything. She works nights at Dino's Diner on Division. Days cleaning offices in the Loop. Pays rent late every month. Daycare's state subsidized, but she's on the wait list for better. Twins are Liam James Whitaker and Ava Grace Whitaker, born 18 months ago at Cook County Hospital. Birth certificates list no father. She's been doing it completely alone. No family help, no mysterious deposits, nothing. Vincent's grip tightened on the phone until the plastic creaked. Alone. Completely alone. While he hosted private poker games with $10,000 buy-ins and flew to Vegas on a whim. "Anything else?" he managed, voice rough. "She's thin, boss. Real thin. Neighbors say she never complains, but it's rough. Kids look healthy, though. She's good with them." Vincent ended the call without another word. He stood at the window, hands braced on the cool glass, chest heaving as if he'd run miles. The remorse was no longer gnawing. It was devouring him whole. Sarah, proud Sarah, who had once blushed when he brought her flowers from the corner market, was wasting away in poverty because he had chosen his empire over her. And the children, his children, were growing up in a freezing walk-up with a mother who could barely feed herself. Love surged through the guilt like fire through dry grass. Not suspicion now, not curiosity. Love, raw, painful, undeniable. He loved her still, had never stopped perhaps, and the thought of her suffering alone because of his cowardice was unbearable. He turned abruptly, grabbing his coat. "I'm going out," he told his driver, alone. The Escalade dropped him 2 blocks from Sarah's building. Vincent walked the rest, collar up against the wind, blending as much as a man like him could in Humboldt Park. The neighborhood was hard. Boarded windows, graffiti, groups of young men eyeing him warily from corners. He felt the weight of stares, knew word would spread fast that Vincent Moretti was on their turf. Rivals watched these streets. Sarah's building was worse than Tommy described. Peeling paint, buzzing front door that didn't lock, mailboxes stuffed with overdue bills. He stood across the street, hidden in the shadow of a closed bodega, watching. She emerged at 3, pushing the double stroller down the cracked front steps with careful effort. Thinner than yesterday, if possible. Coat too light for the wind, hair unwashed, face pale with exhaustion. Liam and Ava were bundled warmly. At her expense, he realized, with a fresh stab of guilt. Sarah paused at the bottom, adjusting the stroller strap that had slipped from her narrow shoulder. A sudden gust whipped her coat open. She shivered violently, but kept moving toward the bus stop. Vincent's heart clenched so hard he nearly stepped forward. Then trouble arrived. A black Charger pulled up fast at the curb, 3 men spilling out. Polish crew. Vincent recognized the tattoos immediately. Rivals pushing into construction territory he controlled. They blocked Sarah's path, one leaning casually against the stroller as if admiring the twins. "Hey, sweetheart," the leader said, voice carrying on the wind. "Nice kids. You live around here?" Sarah froze, body language shifting to guarded fear. She tried to step around, voice soft and polite despite the tremor. "Excuse me, please. I need to get to the bus." The men laughed, closing in, not touching, yet, but crowding her space. Vincent was moving before thought, crossing the street with lethal calm. "Problem?" he asked, voice low but carrying the weight of the city. The poles turned, recognition dawning. Fear flickered, then bravado. "Moretti, this ain't your block." "It's hers," Vincent said simply, stepping between them and Sarah. His presence alone shifted the air, power radiating like heat. Walk away. A tense standoff. Wind howled between buildings. Sarah stood behind him, breath coming fast, confusion and fear warring on her face. She didn't know whether to run or stay. The leader spat on the sidewalk, but backed toward the car. "This ain't over, Vinny." Vincent didn't reply, watching until the Charger peeled away. Only then did he turn to Sarah. She stared up at him, green eyes wide with shock, dizziness making her sway slightly. Recognition hit her like a blow. Vincent? His name on her lips, soft, trembling, undid him completely. Love and remorse crashed together in a wave so intense he nearly reached for her. "You okay?" he asked instead, voice rough. She nodded automatically, then shook her head, clutching the stroller handle for balance. Tears welled but didn't fall. Why are you here?" The question hung between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Vincent looked at the twins, Liam watching him solemnly, Ava reaching curiously toward his coat, and felt his carefully constructed world crack wide open. "I saw you yesterday," he said quietly, "at the Crosswalk." Sarah's face drained of what little color remained. Understanding dawned, followed by guarded panic. She took a step back, protective. Vincent's heart tore anew. She was afraid of him, of what his presence meant, and he deserved it. The wind gusted harder, carrying dead leaves around their feet. In that moment of quiet, condensed stillness, two worlds collided, his of wealth and power, hers of desperate poverty, and neither would ever be the same. The October wind cut sharper that evening as Vincent Moretti stood in the shadowed alley across from Sarah Whitaker's crumbling building on North Humboldt Boulevard. The sun had dipped low, painting the sky in bruised purples and grays, and the streetlights flickered on one by one. He had sent his driver away hours ago, needing the solitude to wrestle with the storm inside him. Tommy's report had confirmed everything and shattered him further. Sarah was barely surviving, and the twins, Liam and Ava, carried his blood. He could not stay away, not after seeing her today, thin and shivering, cornered by those Polish thugs. The way she had gripped that stroller, protective even in fear, it had torn something open in him. Love, fierce and burning, had surged through the guilt like wildfire. He loved her, had always loved her. And the remorse for leaving her to this misery was a living thing, clawing at his chest until he could hardly breathe. Vincent crossed the street as dusk deepened, his expensive wool coat doing little to shield him from the cold, or from the stares of neighbors who recognized power when they saw it. He waited in the dim entryway until he heard her footsteps on the stairs, slow, exhausted, the stroller wheels bumping each step. Sarah emerged into the fading light, pushing the double stroller with trembling arms. She had just picked up the twins from daycare after her cleaning shift. Her face was paler than yesterday, cheekbones stark under the weak bulb over the door. The coat was the same threadbare one, sleeves too short, and she carried a plastic grocery bag with a few cans of generic formula and day-old bread from the discount rack. She froze when she saw him leaning against the wall, hands in pockets, gray eyes fixed on her with an intensity that made her heart stutter. "Vincent," she whispered, voice soft and timid, laced with fear. She glanced around instinctively, as if expecting danger to follow him. What are you doing here?" He straightened, every movement controlled, but inside he was unraveling. Seeing her up close, thin, malnourished, eyes shadowed from sleepless nights, hit him like a physical blow. This was his doing, his choice. "I needed to see you," he said quietly, voice rough with emotion he could barely contain. "After today, are you all right?" Sarah's grip tightened on the stroller handle, knuckles white. Confusion and guarded curiosity warred with the anxiety rising in her chest. Why was he here? After 2 years of silence? A wave of dizziness swept over her, hunger again, or shock, and she swayed slightly, catching herself on the stroller. "I'm fine," she lied politely, though her voice trembled. "Please, I need to get the babies inside. It's cold." Vincent's gaze dropped to the twins. Liam watched him solemnly from under his hood, dark eyes, so like his own, wide and curious. Ava had fallen asleep, tiny fist clutching a worn blanket. His heart contracted painfully. His children, suffering because of him. "Sarah," he said, stepping closer, remorse thickening his throat. "The twins, are they mine?" The question hung in the chilly air like a blade. Sarah's breath caught, horror flashing across her face before she could mask it. She took a step back, protective instinct overriding everything. "They're mine," she said fiercely, though her voice stayed soft, almost pleading. "I chose to raise them alone. You made it clear family wasn't for you. Your world was too dangerous. I believed you. I wasn't going to put children in harm's way or force you into something you didn't want." Vincent felt the words like punches. Force him? He had walked away to protect his empire, his freedom, and left her to this. Poverty so deep it was humiliating, pitiful. Thin shoulders carrying burdens no one should bear alone. "I was wrong," he said, voice breaking for the first time in years. Love and guilt collided violently inside him, tearing at his carefully built walls. "Seeing you yesterday, today. God, Sarah, you're suffering because of me." She shook her head, tears welling but not falling. "We manage. Please, Vincent, just go. Seeing you, it confuses everything." But he couldn't leave, not now. The burning need to protect her, to make this right, overwhelmed him. Then headlights swept the street. Another black Charger slowed at the curb, the same Polish crew from earlier, bolder now in the dark. 3 men stepped out, smirks sharp. "Moretti," the leader called mockingly. "Twice in one day? You lost?" Vincent moved instantly, placing himself between them and Sarah. Power radiated from him, wealth in his tailored coat, authority in his stance. "I told you to walk away. This block is off limits." The men spread out, tension crackling. Sarah's breath came fast, fear numbing her limbs. She clutched the stroller, mind spinning in disorientation. Why were they here? Because of him? "Big talk for a man going soft," one sneered. "Word is you're distracted. Family man now?" Vincent's blood ran cold. They knew, or guessed. Rivals sensing weakness. "Get in your car," Vincent said, voice deadly calm, "or you won't leave walking." A long moment. Wind howled. Then the leader laughed, but back toward the vehicle. "Enjoy your little family, Vinny. We'll be seeing you." The Charger sped off, leaving silence heavier than before. Sarah stared at Vincent's back, trembling. They know about the twins?" He turned, face etched with torment. "Not yet, but they will if I don't handle it." He looked at her, at the exhaustion, the poverty etched into every line of her body, and the love surged again, passionate and overwhelming. He wanted to pull her into his arms, shield her from everything, including himself. "Please," she whispered, voice breaking, "come upstairs, just for a minute. The babies are cold." Vincent nodded, heart pounding. He followed her up the narrow, creaking stairs, 3 flights, her breathing labored from the effort and the stroller's weight. The hallway smelled of old paint and despair. Her door was thin, lock flimsy. Inside, the apartment was heartbreakingly small. 1 room serving as living area and kitchen, a tiny bedroom beyond. Heat barely worked. Frost patterned the windows. The couch sagged, blankets piled where she clearly slept to save on bedding. A single bulb lit the space, casting shadows on bare walls decorated only with a few crayon drawings taped up. The twins' first art. Sarah set the stroller by the radiator that clanked uselessly, gently lifting Ava, who stirred with a soft cry. Liam reached up, wanting out. Vincent stood frozen in the doorway, wealth and power meaningless here. This was what his choice had condemned her to. Nights of cold wind seeping in, meals skipped, pride swallowed in food pantry lines. "I'm sorry," he said, voice raw, "for everything." Sarah turned, cradling Ava against her thin frame. Tears finally spilled. "Why now, Vincent? After all this time?" "Because I can't pretend anymore," he said, stepping closer. "I saw you with them, and it broke me. I love you, Sarah. I never stopped. And if those children are mine, I need to make this right." Her world tilted. Shock, confusion, a flicker of impossible hope. The man who had walked away, powerful, wealthy, untouchable, was standing in her pitiful home, eyes burning with something that looked like love. But fear won. "Your world is dangerous. Those men tonight. I'll protect you," he said fiercely. "All of you." In the quiet that followed, Liam babbled softly, reaching toward Vincent. Sarah watched, heart tearing between terror and the desperate, guarded wish that maybe, just maybe, this was real. Outside, another car engine rumbled in the distance. The confrontation was far from over. The single bulb in Sarah Whitaker's tiny apartment cast a weak, wavering light over the cramped space, doing little to chase away the October chill that seeped through the thin walls. Vincent Moretti stood just inside the door, his broad frame filling the narrow entryway, expensive coat still buttoned against the cold he barely felt. The contrast was unbearable, his world of heated marble floors and private elevators against this. Peeling paint, a radiator that clanked without giving warmth, a kitchen counter cluttered with overdue bills and half-empty formula cans. Sarah moved with quiet efficiency, unbuckling Ava from the stroller first, lifting the sleepy toddler against her narrow shoulder. Her arms trembled faintly from exhaustion, but her touch was infinitely gentle. Liam, wide awake and curious, reached toward Vincent with a soft babble, dark eyes, so unmistakably his father's, fixed on the stranger with innocent trust. Vincent's heart seized. The remorse that had been tearing at him for days now became a violent, living force, ripping through every defense he had built. These were his children, his son reaching for him, his daughter nestled against the woman he had abandoned to this desperate poverty. "Sit," Sarah said softly, voice timid and polite, gesturing to the sagging couch with its threadbare blanket. She avoided his eyes, fear and confusion warring behind her guarded expression. I'll make some tea, if you want." He nodded, unable to speak yet, and lowered himself carefully onto the couch. The springs creaked under his weight. Liam wriggled in the stroller, insistent now, and Sarah hesitated, glancing between the baby and Vincent as if weighing a terrible risk. You can hold him," she whispered finally, voice barely audible. "If you want, just for a minute." Vincent's hands that had commanded fear and respect across Chicago, trembled as he reached out. Sarah lifted Liam carefully, placing the warm, solid weight of his son in his arms for the first time. The toddler blinked up at him, then grabbed the lapel of Vincent's cashmere coat with surprising strength, tiny fingers curling into the expensive fabric without hesitation. Something inside Vincent shattered completely. The boy was heavier than he expected, warm and real, smelling of baby shampoo and the faint sweetness of formula. Liam studied his face solemnly, then broke into a sudden gummy smile, kicking his legs in delight. Vincent felt the smile like a physical blow. Joy and pain colliding so violently, his vision blurred. He's beautiful, Vincent managed, voice rough and breaking. He looked at Sarah, standing frozen beside them, Ava asleep against her chest. The disparity hit him anew. Sarah, so thin, her sweater hung loosely, collarbones sharp, face pale from skipped meals and sleepless nights, while he sat here in clothes that cost more than her monthly rent. Love surged through him, passionate, intense, burning away every remnant of denial. He loved her with a depth that terrified him. And he loved these children with a fierce protectiveness that made his chest ache. The remorse was unbearable now. He had left her to this, to cold nights wrapped in blankets on this very couch so the twins could have the crib, to hunger that left her dizzy, to humiliation at food pantries and overdue notices. Sarah watched him with Liam, her own heart tearing in confused, numbing waves. Shock made her sway slightly. She gripped the counter for balance. This man, wealthy, powerful, the one who had walked away, was holding her son with reverence, gray eyes shining with unshed tears. It didn't make sense. After 2 years of silence, of struggling alone, of nights when the wind howled through cracks and she held the twins close to share body heat, he was here, saying he was wrong. "Why does he look at you like that?" she asked softly, voice trembling. "Like he knows you." Vincent swallowed hard, gently stroking Liam's dark hair. Maybe he does, on some level. Ava stirred then, whimpering in her sleep. Sarah shifted her automatically, rocking side to side, the motion born of endless nights soothing 2 babies at once. Vincent watched the exhaustion in every line of her body, the quiet strength that had kept them alive, and felt fresh torment. "You've done this alone," he said, voice raw. "All of it. While He couldn't finish. The words choked him. While he dined in private clubs, flew to Miami on private jets, built his empire higher. While she endured this pitiful, humiliating poverty, thin, malnourished, sleep-deprived, pride swallowed daily just to feed their children. Sarah's eyes filled, but she blinked the tears back fiercely. "We manage," she repeated, the lie brittle now. A sudden cough from Ava turned into a small fit. Sarah patted her back gently, face tightening with worry. The pediatrician had mentioned a possible ear infection, but the copay. Vincent saw it all. The fear behind her guarded expression, the way she rationed every movement to conserve energy. The unfairness of it clawed at him. "They're strong," he said quietly, shifting Liam to his shoulder where the boy nestled trustingly, tiny hand fisting Vincent's shirt. "Like their mother." Sarah made a soft sound, half sob, half laugh, and turned away to hide her face. The room fell into one of those condensed moments of stillness, broken only by the twins' breathing and the distant wail of a siren outside. Then headlights swept the window, another vehicle slowing on the street below. Vincent tensed instantly, protective instinct flaring. He stood carefully, Liam secure in his arms, and moved to the curtain. The same black Charger idled at the curb. The Polish crew again, bolder now, testing boundaries. One man leaned against the hood, staring up at the building with deliberate menace. Vincent's jaw tightened. They were sending a message. "We know where your weakness lives now." Sarah noticed his change, fear flashing across her face. "Vincent?" "Stay away from the window," he said, softly but firmly. He handed Liam back to her gently, regret and love warring in his eyes. "I have to handle this." "No," she whispered, clutching both children now, voice desperate. "Please don't bring trouble here. We've had enough." The plea tore at him. She was right. This was his fault, his world bleeding into hers. He stepped close enough to see the exhaustion in her green eyes, the faint tremor in her lips. "I won't let anything happen to you," he said fiercely. "Any of you. I swear it." Outside, the Charger's engine revved once, a warning, before pulling away slowly. Vincent watched until it disappeared, every muscle coiled. When he turned back, Sarah stood holding both twins, thin arms straining but steady. Tears tracked silently down her cheeks now. "I can't do this alone anymore," she admitted in a broken whisper, the confession costing her everything. Pride, fear, hope, all laid bare. Vincent crossed the small space in 2 strides, stopping just short of touching her. The love was overwhelming now, passionate, consuming. He wanted to pull her into his arms, shield her from every cold night, every skipped meal, every unfair blow life had dealt her. "You don't have to," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Not anymore." In the quiet that followed, Liam reached out again, toward Vincent this time, small hand open in innocent trust. Ava stirred, blinking sleepy eyes at the man who looked at her mother with burning intensity. Sarah's world tilted dangerously. Shock, confusion, the first fragile spark of something she was terrified to name. The powerful man who had once walked away was here, promising protection. But at what cost? The wind rattled the windows harder, as if the city itself held its breath for what came next. The days following Vincent Moretti's appearance in Sarah Whitaker's apartment blurred into a tense, fragile limbo. October 2025 deepened, the Chicago wind turning bitter as it swept through the cracked windows of her Humboldt Park walk-up. Vincent came every evening after handling his business, always alone, always watchful. Bringing groceries he insisted were just extras, warm blankets, a space heater that actually worked. He held the twins, learned their routines, listened to Sarah's quiet explanations of feedings and nap schedules, but he never stayed long, respecting the guarded distance in her eyes. Sarah watched him with a heart torn between suspicion and desperate, confusing hope. The powerful man who had once left her was now sitting on her sagging couch, Liam asleep on his broad chest, Ava playing with the buttons of his expensive shirt. It didn't make sense. Her poverty, thin body shivering even with the new heater, nights still spent on the couch so the twins could have warmth, felt more humiliating than ever in his presence. He saw it all, the empty cabinets, the stack of eviction warnings, the way she rationed formula. Yet his gray eyes burned with something that terrified and drew her. Love, fierce and unrelenting, and remorse that seemed to physically pain him. Vincent's inner world was violent chaos. Holding his children, his son and daughter, ignited a protectiveness so intense it scared him. The guilt was a constant torment. Every glimpse of Sarah's malnourished frame, every time she swayed from dizziness, tore at him anew. He had done this, his choice. And now rivals circled, sensing blood in the water. The Polish crew had not backed off. Vincent's men reported increased activity. Drive-bys near Humboldt Park, questions asked in bars. They wanted his construction rackets, and weakness, real or perceived, was an invitation. He increased discreet protection, unmarked cars on her block, trusted soldiers watching from shadows. But he kept it hidden from Sarah, not wanting to frighten her more. Then, on a rainy Thursday evening, it happened. Sarah had worked a double shift, diner until 4, then cleaning offices until 9. Exhaustion dragged at her like chains. The bus was late. Rain soaked her thin coat as she pushed the stroller the last 3 blocks home. Liam fussed, cold and hungry. Ava cried softly. Sarah hummed to soothe them, voice cracking from fatigue. Her arms ached, vision blurring from lack of food. She had given the twins her last peanut butter sandwich at lunch. As she turned onto her street, a black van pulled alongside. Doors slid open fast. 3 men in dark hoods jumped out, faces masked, movements professional. Sarah's heart stopped. She tried to run, gripping the stroller, but strong hands seized her arms, another grabbing the handle. "Let go," she cried, voice desperate and powerless. Horror flooded her, cold, numbing terror. The twins wailed. One man clamped a hand over her mouth, lifting her bodily. The stroller was yanked away. Liam and Ava's cries pierced the rain. Sarah kicked, twisted, but hunger and exhaustion weakened her. Dizziness overwhelmed her. The world tilted violently. Pain exploded in her head as she was shoved into the van. The doors slammed. Tires screeched. Darkness swallowed them. Vincent received the call 20 minutes later, in his Gold Coast penthouse overlooking the glittering lake. Tommy's voice was tight. "Boss, they took her. Van, no plates visible. Poles style. Left the stroller on the sidewalk." Vincent's world narrowed to ice and fire. The phone cracked in his grip. Love and guilt detonated into raw, violent fury. Not hot, but cold and lethal. His children, his Sarah, taken because of him. He mobilized instantly, every resource, every favor. Crews hit the streets, informants squeezed. Within an hour, a location. Abandoned warehouse in an industrial corner of the South Side, Polish territory. Vincent drove himself, rain lashing the windshield. His mind replayed every moment with Sarah. Her soft voice, thin hands, the way she protected the twins, even when breaking. The thought of her terrified, cold, harmed because of his enemies, it tore his heart with unbearable intensity. He would burn the city to get them back. The warehouse loomed dark and silent under sodium lights. Vincent's men fanned out, no guns blazing, but ready. He approached the side door alone first, a calculated risk to draw them out. 3 Poles emerged, smirks fading when they saw his face. "Where are they?" Vincent asked, voice deadly calm. "Insurance," the leader sneered. "You step back from construction, we return the merchandise unharmed." Vincent's control snapped, not into rage, but precision. His men moved from shadows. A tense standoff, words sharp, threats veiled. The Poles shifted uneasily. Vincent's reputation weighed heavy. Inside, Sarah huddled in a cold corner with Liam and Ava, wrists bound loosely with zip ties. The twins cried against her, soaked and freezing. Terror numbed her. Dizziness made everything swim. She rocked them instinctively, whispering comfort through chattering teeth. Humiliation burned. This was Vincent's world, the danger he had warned her about. And now her babies were paying. But beneath fear, a new emotion flickered. Fierce gratitude that Vincent would come. He would. She knew it in her bones. The door burst open. Vincent filled the frame, rain dripping from his coat, eyes scanning until they found her. Relief and love flashed across his face, raw, overwhelming. He crossed the room in strides, kneeling before her. Hands gentle despite their strength, he cut the ties, pulling her and the twins into his arms. Sarah collapsed against him, sobs breaking free. The twins quieted instantly in his hold. "You're safe," he murmured against her hair, voice breaking. "I have you. All of you." Outside, his men escorted the Poles away, messages delivered without bloodshed, boundaries redrawn. The cost would come later, but tonight was for them. In the back of his warm Escalade, Sarah sat wrapped in his coat, twins asleep against her at last. Vincent drove, one hand on the wheel, the other holding hers tightly. The silence was heavy with everything unsaid. Sarah looked at him, powerful, wealthy, tormented, and felt the world shift again. Shock, confusion, and something deeper. The first overwhelming surge of trust. He had come, risked everything. Vincent glanced at her, gray eyes burning. Love, passionate, intense, consumed him. Holding her hand, feeling the twins' warmth, he knew he would dismantle his empire brick by brick to keep them safe. "I'm getting you out of that apartment," he said quietly. "Tonight. You'll stay with me until it's safe. No arguments." Sarah nodded, too exhausted, too shaken to fight. Tears fell silently. The disparity hit her harder than ever. His protection against her powerless poverty. But in his grip, for the first time in years, she felt warm. The rain eased as they crossed the city, headlights cutting through the night. Behind them, the warehouse faded into darkness. Ahead, everything was uncertain, but for the first time, Sarah was not alone. Vincent's heart tore anew, joy at having them safe, torment at the danger he had brought. He would fix this, all of it. The wind whispered promises and threats as Chicago slept uneasily around them. The Gold Coast penthouse felt like another planet to Sarah Whitaker, as Vincent Moretti carried the sleeping twins through the private elevator that opened directly into his living room. It was still the same rainy October night in 2025, but the contrast struck her like a physical force. Warm air enveloped her immediately. Subtle, perfectly controlled heat from hidden vents. Soft, recessed lighting illuminated vast marble floors, sleek modern furniture, and floor-to-ceiling windows framing the glittering expanse of Lake Michigan far below. Everything was clean, quiet, luxurious beyond anything she had ever touched. Vincent set Liam and Ava gently into a portable crib his staff had already assembled in a spare bedroom, larger than her entire old apartment, with plush carpeting and a view of the city lights. Sarah stood in the doorway, dripping rainwater onto the pristine floor, her threadbare coat clinging cold and wet to her thin frame. She felt small, pitiful, humiliatingly out of place. The poverty she had endured for so long, cold nights huddled with the twins, hunger that left her dizzy, the constant fear of eviction, seemed to scream louder here amid such wealth. Vincent turned to her, gray eyes burning with an intensity that made her breath catch. He shrugged off his soaked coat, revealing the tailored shirt beneath, and draped a thick, heated towel from a nearby warmer around her shoulders without asking. His touch was careful, almost reverent. "You're freezing," he said quietly, voice rough with remorse. "Bathroom's through there, hot shower. I'll have dry clothes brought." Sarah clutched the towel, confusion and shock numbing her. The warmth seeped into her skin, foreign after months of shivering. "Vincent, I can't stay here. It's too much." He stepped closer, not crowding, but close enough that she felt his presence like a shield. "You have to, for now. They're not done. The polls, they won't stop until they get a response." His jaw tightened, inner conflict flashing across his face. Love and torment warred visibly. The fierce need to protect, clashing with the violent guilt that he had brought this danger to her door. Sarah swayed, dizziness hitting hard. Exhaustion, trauma, the surreal shift from terror in a cold warehouse to this opulent safety. Vincent caught her elbow gently, steadying her. His touch sent warmth through her that had nothing to do with the towel. "I'm sorry," he whispered, voice breaking. "This is my fault, all of it." She looked up at him, tears welling. The man who had once walked away was now trembling with emotion, eyes devouring her face as if memorizing every line. The surge of love in his gaze was overwhelming, passionate, burning, undeniable. It terrified her and pulled at something deep inside that had never stopped hoping. In the days that followed, Vincent turned the penthouse into a fortress. Armed guards in plain clothes patrolled the private garage and lobby, discreet, professional. Delivery services brought everything Sarah could need: fresh clothes in her size, organic baby food, pediatrician-approved formula, toys the twins had never had. Staff appeared and vanished like ghosts, cleaning, cooking, anticipating needs she had never dared voice. Sarah moved through it all in a daze of shock and guarded wonder. The master bathroom alone was larger than her old bedroom, marble, heated floors, a shower with multiple heads that washed away months of grime and cold in minutes. She stood under the hot water longer than necessary, crying silently as the warmth soaked into bones that had ached for years. When she emerged, soft pajamas and a robe waited, simple but impossibly luxurious against her skin. The twins thrived instantly. Warm rooms, full bellies, new toys. Liam laughed more. Ava slept deeper. Sarah watched them play on thick rugs, heart tearing between gratitude and the numbing unfairness of it all. Why had she suffered so long alone when this existed? Why had fate been so cruel? Vincent gave her space but was never far. He worked from his home office, delegating more than ever, eyes always seeking her out. Nights were the hardest. The twins slept in their own room with a monitor. Sarah had a guest suite with a bed softer than anything she remembered. But sleep evaded her. Flashbacks to the warehouse, the terror of hands grabbing her babies. One night, unable to bear the silence, she padded barefoot to the living room. Vincent was there, standing at the windows in the dark, city lights reflecting in his eyes. He turned as she approached, surprise softening to concern. "Can't sleep?" he asked softly. She shook her head, wrapping arms around her thin frame. "Nightmares." Without a word, he opened his arms. Sarah hesitated, fear, pride, confusion, then stepped into them. He enveloped her gently, strong arms careful around her fragility. She buried her face in his chest, breathing in warmth and safety. His heartbeat thundered under her ear. "I'm so sorry," he murmured into her hair, voice raw, "for leaving you to that life, for the danger now, for everything." The remorse in his words undid her. Tears came hot and fast. Vincent held her tighter, his own eyes wet. Love surged through him, intense, consuming. Holding her like this, feeling her tremble, he would have given his empire, his power, everything to erase her pain. Outside, trouble brewed. The poles tested boundaries. One afternoon, Vincent's driver spotted a tail on the way back from a pediatric checkup. Vincent handled it personally, pulling over in a busy loop street, confronting the followers face to face. No violence, just cold authority. "You come near my family again, you don't walk away." The men backed down, but word spread. Rivals whispered that Vincent Moretti had gone soft, distracted by a woman and kids. More probes came, cars circling the building, anonymous calls. Vincent responded with calculated pressure. Meetings in neutral territories, messages delivered through back channels. One tense evening on a rain-slicked street in Little Village, he faced the Polish leader again. Standoff under streetlights, men on both sides watchful. "You crossed a line," Vincent said calmly. "Take it back or lose more than you can afford." The leader smirked but shifted uneasily. Vincent's reputation still carried weight. An uneasy truce formed, for now. Back home, Sarah waited anxiously, twins asleep. When Vincent returned, tension etched in his face, she met him at the door without thinking, hands reaching to check he was unharmed. The gesture broke something in him. He pulled her close, kissing her forehead fiercely. "I'm okay," he whispered. "We're okay." In the quiet aftermath, their touches lingered longer. Accidental brushes became deliberate. Eyes met and held. The love between them, his burning and passionate, hers growing from guarded embers, built like a storm. Sarah's heart tore daily. Gratitude for the warmth, food, safety, clashing with fear of the danger. Confusion at how fast her world had changed. One night, standing at the windows, watching snow begin to fall, the first of the season, she whispered, "This can't last. Your world, it'll take you from us eventually." Vincent came behind her, arms wrapping around her waist, chin resting on her head. "I'm changing it," he said fiercely. "For you, for them, whatever it takes." She turned in his arms, looking up at him. Shock and hope warred. The powerful man who could command Chicago's shadows was choosing her, poor, broken her. In that moment of condensed stillness, snow falling silently beyond the glass, something shifted irrevocably. Sarah reached up, fingers tracing his jaw. Vincent's breath caught. Love overwhelmed him. Their first kiss was tentative, then fierce, years of pain and longing colliding. Sarah clung to him, dizziness not from hunger now, but from the intensity of feeling wanted, protected, loved by this man who held the city in his palm, yet trembled for her. The wind howled outside, but inside, warmth finally reached places long frozen. The uneasy truce with the Polish crew held for only a few fragile weeks, long enough for the first snow of late October 2025 to dust the streets of Chicago. Inside Vincent Moretti's Gold Coast penthouse, an unfamiliar rhythm had begun to settle. The twins laughed freely in sunlit rooms that smelled of fresh coffee and baby powder. Sarah's cheeks filled out slightly from regular meals. Color returned to her face. She moved through the vast spaces with growing ease, though wonder and disbelief still shadowed her eyes whenever she paused at the windows overlooking the lake. Vincent watched her constantly, his love a fierce, burning constant beneath every action. He delegated more business than ever before, spending evenings on the floor building block towers with Liam, or reading board books to Ava in voices that made her giggle. The remorse that tore at him had not lessened, it had deepened. Every time Sarah unconsciously rubbed her thin arms for warmth out of old habit, or when she thanked the staff too politely for something as simple as fresh fruit, he felt the knife twist. He had condemned her to years of cold, hunger, and fear. Now he would spend the rest of his life making it right. But the city outside did not sleep. Tommy Russo, Vincent's most trusted soldier, the man who had first investigated Sarah, who had stood beside him during the warehouse rescue, began to change in subtle ways. Meetings ran longer. Reports came late. Vincent noticed, but attributed it to the pressure of holding territory while he pulled back. Sarah sensed it too, in small things. Tommy's eyes lingering too long when he visited the penthouse on security updates. The way his smile never reached his eyes when Vincent spoke of stepping away from certain rackets. One crisp afternoon, Vincent took Sarah and the twins for a carefully guarded walk along the lakefront trail. Bodyguards at a discreet distance, fresh air after days indoors. Liam pointed excitedly at sailboats. Ava clutched a new stuffed bear Vincent had bought her. Sarah walked beside him, hand brushing his occasionally, the touch sending sparks through both of them. For a moment, the world felt almost normal. Then Tommy called. Urgent. Meet at an old warehouse on the south side, neutral ground, to discuss a Polish overture. Vincent kissed Sarah's forehead before leaving. Short meeting, back for dinner. She nodded, unease fluttering in her chest, but pushed it down. He would be careful. The warehouse was dim and echoing when Vincent arrived with two trusted men. Tommy waited in the center, hands in pockets, expression oddly calm. Boss, Tommy greeted. Poles want peace. Big concession. Half the construction unions. Vincent's instincts prickled. Too easy. What's the catch? Tommy smiled thinly. No catch. They just finally realized you're serious about protecting your family. The word family hung heavy. Vincent's eyes narrowed. Behind him, doors creaked. More men entered, not his, Poles, and a few of his own crew, faces he recognized, turning coats. Betrayal hit like ice water. Tommy stepped forward. It's time, Vinny. You've gone soft, distracted. The family's suffering. I gave them the location of your penthouse routes. In exchange, I take over. Vincent's world tilted. Not rivals, his own. The man he had trusted like a brother, the one who knew Sarah's face, the twins' names. Rage and torment collided violently inside him, but he kept his voice steady. You'd risk innocence? A woman and children? Tommy shrugged. Collateral. You step down quietly, they stay safe. The standoff stretched, men facing men under flickering fluorescent lights. Vincent's mind raced, Sarah alone upstairs with the twins, guards possibly compromised. Love and fear for them overrode everything. He moved first, not with weapons, but presence, stepping toward Tommy, voice low and lethal. You think you can lead? You betray blood for scraps? Words turned to posturing to shoves. Vincent's loyal men held the line. A tense negotiation unfolded. No bloodshed, but boundaries redrawn in threats and promises. Tommy backed down when he realized not all had turned. Vincent's reputation still commanded fear, but the damage was done. Vincent drove back through snowy streets, heart pounding with fresh torment. Betrayal from within, the worst kind. He had brought Sarah into this world to protect her, only to expose her further. He burst into the penthouse, finding Sarah in the kitchen preparing bottles, twins napping. She turned at his expression, fear flashing. What happened? He pulled her into his arms, holding tight as if she might vanish. Tommy, he sold information, wanted to take over. Sarah went still, horror numbing her. The man who had seemed so loyal, because of her? Because Vincent had changed for them? Tears filled her eyes. This is my fault. If I hadn't... No, Vincent said fiercely, cupping her face. It's mine. For building a life where betrayal is possible. His voice cracked. Love surged, passionate, protective. But I won't lose you, any of you. In the quiet aftermath, Vincent acted decisively. Tommy was banished, stripped of power, sent out of the city with a warning that carried final weight. Loyal men promoted. Rackets shifted faster toward legitimate ventures. Real estate, restaurants, trucking companies Vincent already owned. Sarah watched the changes with growing awe and fear. The powerful man dismantling parts of his empire, for her, for their children. One snow-muffled night, after the twins slept, Sarah found Vincent in his office, staring at old photos on his desk. Him, younger, harder, alone. She approached softly, placing a hand on his shoulder. You're giving up everything, she whispered. He turned, pulling her into his lap, arms wrapping around her thin waist. I'm gaining everything, he said, voice raw. You, them, a life worth living. Their kiss was slow at first, then deep, intense, years of separation pouring out. Sarah clung to him, dizziness not from hunger, but from the overwhelming reality of being loved so completely by this man who commanded worlds, yet chose her. Outside, snow fell thicker, blanketing the city in temporary peace. Inside, trust deepened, fragile but growing. Vincent's heart still tore, joy at holding her, torment at the risks he had brought. But for the first time, hope outweighed guilt. The betrayal had wounded, but it had also clarified. He would build something new, safe, for them. In the condensed stillness of that snowy night, Sarah rested her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. The poor, broken woman who had endured so much felt, for the first time, truly seen, and loved beyond measure. Snow fell thick and silent over Chicago in the final days of October 2025, blanketing the city in a hush that felt almost sacred. Inside Vincent Moretti's penthouse, the world had shrunk to warm lights, the twins' laughter echoing off marble floors, and the growing, inescapable pull between him and Sarah Whitaker. Their nights had become a quiet ritual. After Liam and Ava slept, Sarah and Vincent lingered in the living room, talking softly by the windows or sharing a late meal prepared by staff who vanished discreetly. Touches grew bolder, his hand on the small of her back, her fingers tracing the silver at his temples. Kisses deepened from tentative to hungry, years of longing finally released. Vincent's love for her was a constant blaze now, passionate, protective, all-consuming. Every glance at her filling out cheeks, every time she laughed without the shadow of exhaustion, filled him with fierce joy and deeper remorse. He was dismantling the dangerous parts of his empire faster than planned, selling rackets, shifting wealth to legitimate businesses, preparing a future where his family would never be targets again. For her, for their children. Sarah felt the change like a dream she feared waking from. The woman who had endured years of cold nights on a sagging couch, rationing formula and skipping meals until dizziness was constant, now woke in soft sheets with no fear of eviction. Food appeared without begging or humiliation. The twins had warm clothes, toys, a pediatrician who came to them. It was overwhelming. Gratitude warring with the numbing disbelief that this could be real. But guilt gnawed at her too. Vincent was risking everything for them, and she carried a secret that could shatter it all. It came out one snow-muffled evening after a day when old nightmares had returned. Sarah had woken gasping from memories of the warehouse, the cold, the terror for her babies. Vincent found her in the kitchen at dawn, staring at nothing, hands trembling around a mug of tea gone cold. He approached slowly, concern etching his face. "Sarah?" She looked up, green eyes filled with tears she could no longer hold back. The weight of the secret, carried alone for so long, became unbearable. "There's something I need to tell you," she whispered, voice soft and trembling. "Something I never said, because I didn't want pity or obligation." Vincent sat beside her, taking her cold hands in his warm ones. Fear flickered in his chest, but love steadied him. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." Sarah drew a shaky breath. The words came haltingly at first, then in a rush. During the pregnancy, early on, they found something. Lymphoma. Aggressive. The doctors said treatment, chemotherapy, would give me a good chance, but it would almost certainly harm the babies. Twins already made it high risk. Vincent went still, dread rising. "I refused treatment," she continued, tears falling now. "Chose them over me. The prognosis without it was poor. They gave me months, maybe a year if lucky. I prepared for the worst, wrote letters for the twins, arranged with a church charity to find them a home if I didn't make it." Her voice broke. "I survived anyway, against every odd, weakened but alive. But I never told you because you already said you couldn't be a father. I didn't want you staying out of guilt or taking them into your world out of duty." Vincent's world shattered. He pulled away slightly, not from her, but from the pain exploding inside him. Remorse, already violent, became cataclysmic. She had faced death alone, chosen death, for their children, while he lived in luxury, rejecting the very family she sacrificed everything to protect. "Sarah," his voice failed. He dropped to his knees before her chair, head bowed, hands gripping hers like lifelines. Tears, rare for him, fell hot onto their joined fingers. "You carried that alone," he choked out, "face dying alone, because of my cowardice. God, Sarah." Love surged through the torment, intense, burning, worshipful. She had given everything, and he had given nothing. Sarah cupped his face, tears streaming. "I didn't want you trapped. I wanted the twins safe, loved." Vincent rose, pulling her into his arms with desperate strength. She clung to him, thin body shaking with sobs long suppressed. The disparity hit harder than ever. Her years of pitiful, humiliating struggle, cold nights, hunger, illness hidden to protect unborn babies, against his wealth and power wasted on emptiness. In that moment of condensed, aching stillness, snow tapping softly at the windows, Vincent made silent vows. He would protect her health now, best doctors, whatever she needed. He would love her with every breath, make up for every moment lost. The revelation changed everything. Vincent accelerated his exit from dangerous rackets, facing one final, tense street confrontation with remaining doubters. On a snowy corner in the West Loop, he met holdouts who questioned his resolve. "You think family makes you weak?" one challenged. Vincent's gaze was steel. "It makes me unstoppable." They backed down. Word spread. Vincent Moretti was rebuilding, stronger, smarter, untouchable in new ways. Back home, Sarah began treatment checkups, precautionary now, her survival a miracle doctors still marveled at. Vincent attended every appointment, holding her hand, eyes never leaving her face. One night, after a clear scan result, they stood on the balcony watching snow swirl over the lake. Sarah leaned into him, no longer thin and fragile, but healing. "I was so scared," she admitted softly. "Dying alone, the twins growing up without me." Vincent turned her to face him, hands framing her face. "Never again. You're my life, Sarah. You and the twins. I love you, more than power, more than anything I ever built." Their kiss was deep, passionate, joy and pain intertwined. Sarah felt the surge of his love like warmth after endless cold. The poor woman who had faced death powerless now stood protected, cherished beyond imagining. Inside, the twins slept peacefully. Outside, snow continued to fall, covering old scars. Vincent's heart still tore, but now with hope. He had almost lost her twice. He would spend forever proving she was safe. In the quiet, their embrace tightened. Love, fierce, redemptive, burned brighter than any empire. Word count, approximately 1,500. The revelation of Sarah's secret sacrifice hung between them like sacred fire, burning, purifying, impossible to touch without being utterly consumed. For 3 days after she told him, Vincent Moretti barely slept. He walked the penthouse at night like a man possessed, watching the twins breathe in their crib, standing outside Sarah's door, listening for the soft sounds of her restless turning, staring out at the frozen lake until dawn bled gray across the water. The knowledge that she had chosen death for their children, while he rejected them in selfish cowardice, had cracked something irreparable inside him. Remorse was no longer a wound. It was the entire landscape of his heart. Sarah felt the shift in him as clearly as changing weather. Vincent had always been intense, but now his gaze followed her with something close to worship, tender, terrified, violently reverent. When their eyes met, the air thickened until breathing hurt. He touched her constantly, fingers brushing her wrist when passing a cup of coffee, palm settling on the small of her back as she bent over the twins, forehead pressed to hers in wordless apology when words failed. On the 4th night, the storm broke. Snow lashed the windows in furious gusts. The twins had been asleep for hours. Sarah stood in the kitchen in one of Vincent's soft cotton shirts, far too large, sleeves rolled many times, hem brushing mid-thigh, staring at the city lights blurred by the blizzard. She felt him before she heard him, the quiet pad of bare feet, the shift in air as his presence filled the room. He stopped behind her, close enough that she felt his heat through the thin fabric. Neither spoke. The silence stretched, dense with everything unsaid. Then, Vincent's hand settled on her shoulders, gentle, trembling. Sarah. One word, her name, spoken like a prayer and a curse. She turned slowly. His face was ravaged, eyes red-rimmed, jaw clenched against the storm inside him. Snow light from the windows carved harsh shadows across his features, making him look older, broken, beautiful. "I can't breathe with what you did," he rasped. "You faced death alone, chose it, for them, for children I said I didn't want, while his voice cracked completely, while I lived like a king who deserved nothing." Sarah's heart tore open. She reached up, cupping his wet cheeks. "I chose love," she whispered. "That's all." The words undid him. Vincent dropped to his knees on the cold marble, arms wrapping around her waist, face pressed to her stomach as violent sobs shook his powerful frame. The sound he made, raw, animal, centuries of loneliness finally breaking free, shattered her. Sarah sank with him, kneeling, pulling him close until they were tangled together on the floor, snowlight bathing them in silver. "I love you," he choked against her neck. "God, Sarah, I love you so much it hurts. I loved you then, and I was too much of a coward to keep you. I love you now, and it's killing me that I almost lost you forever." The confession detonated everything. Sarah kissed him, desperate, starving. Years of loneliness, fear, cold nights, and hopeless longing poured into that kiss. Vincent responded with matching violence, hands gripping her hips hard enough to bruise, mouth claiming hers like a drowning man finally reaching air. They devoured each other, teeth clashing, tongues tangling, breath shared in ragged gasps. He lifted her onto the kitchen island without breaking the kiss, stepping between her thighs, hands sliding under the shirt to find skin that had known only hardship. Sarah arched into him, fingers clawing at his back, nails digging through cotton as if she could pull him inside her very soul. "Vincent," she gasped when he tore his mouth away to trail burning kisses down her throat. "Please." He understood everything. In one motion, he swept her up, carrying her through the darkened penthouse to the master bedroom. His bedroom, vast and luxurious, that she had never dared enter. He laid her on sheets that cost more than her old monthly rent, following her down, covering her body with his. Their lovemaking was explosive, punishing and worshipful, desperate and reverent. Clothes vanished in frantic hands. Skin met skin for the first time in years, and they both cried out at the shock of it. Vincent kissed every scar her illness had left, every sharp bone that spoke of hunger endured, every inch of the body that had carried and protected his children alone. Sarah wrapped around him completely, legs locked at his waist, arms clutching his shoulders, mouth seeking his in kiss after kiss that tasted of salt and forgiveness. When he finally entered her, they both stilled, foreheads pressed together, breathing each other's air, tears mingling. "Look at me," Vincent whispered hoarsely. She opened her eyes. His were blazing. Love, remorse, possession, adoration, all laid bare. "I love you," he said, with each slow, deliberate thrust. "I love you. I love you." Sarah shattered first, crying out his name as pleasure and pain and love overwhelmed her. Vincent followed moments later, burying his face in her neck, body shaking with the force of his release and the sobs he could no longer contain. They made love 3 times that night, urgent and slow, gentle and fierce, until exhaustion finally claimed them. Vincent fell asleep still inside her, arms locked around her as if afraid she would vanish. Sarah drifted off with her fingers tangled in his hair, feeling, for the first time in years, truly, completely safe. In the weeks that followed, their passion only intensified. They stole moments everywhere, quick and desperate in the shower while the twins napped, slow and worshipful in the dark after bedtime stories, once even in the pantry when desire became unbearable during dinner preparation. Vincent touched her constantly, hand on her thigh under the table, fingers linked during walks, pulling her into alcoves for kisses that left them both breathless. He sold the last dangerous rackets, moved the family to a secure estate in suburban Oak Brook, acres of land, gates, guards who blended into staff. The wealth was no longer a monument to his solitude, but a fortress for his family. Sarah blossomed. Good food, rest, love, and medical care worked miracles. Her body filled out, curves returning, skin glowing. She laughed freely, danced with the twins in sunlit rooms. And when Vincent looked at her across a room, desire and love blazed so hot she felt it on her skin. One spring evening in their new home, after the twins were asleep, Vincent found her on the terrace, watching fireflies. He came behind her, arms sliding around her waist, mouth finding the sensitive spot below her ear. "Marry me," he murmured against her skin. Sarah turned in his arms, eyes shining. Yes. Their kiss ignited instantly, passionate, consuming. He lifted her against the terrace railing, her legs wrapping around his waist as they made love under the stars, urgent and perfect. Later, lying tangled in bed, Vincent traced patterns on her bare back. "I was dead before you," he whispered. "Everything before this was just existing." Sarah pressed her lips to his chest, over his heart. "And I was surviving. Now I'm alive." In the quiet rebirth of their love, explosive, healing, eternal, the past finally lost its power to hurt. They had found each other through fire and sacrifice, and they would never let go. 3 years had passed since the snow-muffled night when Vincent Moretti and Sarah Whitaker first gave themselves completely to each other. The calendar now read early summer, the warm Illinois sun pouring through the wide windows of their spacious home in Oak Brook. The estate was no longer a fortress of guards and gates. It had become a true home. Gardens blooming with roses Sarah planted herself. A swing set where Liam and Ava, now 4 years old, played endlessly under mature oak trees, laughter ringing across the green lawn. Vincent stood on the wide back porch in jeans and a simple white shirt, watching his children chase each other around the yard. Liam, sturdy and fearless like his father, tackled a soccer ball with fierce concentration. Ava, graceful and quick, darted after him with delighted shrieks, auburn curls flying in the breeze. Sarah knelt nearby, helping them set up a small picnic blanket, her face glowing with health and happiness she had never known in those desperate years. The sight of them, his family, still struck Vincent with a force that stole his breath. The remorse never fully left him. It lived quietly now, a steady reminder of the years he had lost, the suffering he had allowed. But love had grown fiercer than guilt, passionate, intense, woven into every ordinary moment. He and Sarah still reached for each other with the same urgency. Stolen kisses in the kitchen, slow dances after the children slept, nights when desire flared sudden and consuming. Sarah had found purpose beyond motherhood. With Vincent's quiet support, she founded a small nonprofit helping single mothers facing serious illness, offering the practical aid, medical navigation, and emotional support she had once desperately needed. She worked from a sunlit office in the house, her compassion born of hard-won knowledge, touching countless lives. Vincent's transformation was complete. The old empire existed only in memory. His wealth now flowed through restaurants, real estate, and community investments, clean, legitimate, and deeply rooted in giving back. Former rivals had either retired or followed his lead into lawful ventures. The streets respected him still, but for different reasons. On this particular Saturday, the yard filled with family and friends for a simple 4th of July barbecue. Sarah's parents from downstate, a few of Vincent's reformed old crew, now legitimate businessmen with their own families, neighbors from the community Sarah had come to love. Smoke rose from the grill where Vincent flipped burgers, Cub's cap pulled low, looking every inch the devoted father rather than the feared boss he once was. Sarah approached with a tray of lemonade, setting it on the picnic table before slipping her arms around his waist from behind. He turned, pulling her close, kissing her deeply without caring who watched. Their love had never been shy. "Daddy, watch!" Liam called, kicking the soccer ball hard toward the makeshift goal. It sailed in perfectly. Vincent cheered loudly, lifting his son high when he ran over, Ava piling on for hugs. Later, as fireworks began to bloom over the distant Chicago skyline, the family gathered on blankets in the grass. Liam nestled against Vincent's side, Ava in Sarah's lap. Fireflies danced in the cooling air, and the children oohed at each burst of color. Vincent looked at Sarah across the glow, her face illuminated by red and gold light. She smiled at him, soft, knowing, full of the same fierce love that lived in his chest. He reached for her hand, threading their fingers. In the quiet between explosions, he leaned close. "I was empty before you," he whispered. "Everything I thought mattered was nothing." Sarah squeezed his hand. "And I was only surviving. You gave me life. We gave each other life." The children yawned, eyelids drooping. Vincent carried Liam inside while Sarah followed with Ava. Tucking them in, they lingered in the doorway, watching their peaceful faces. Downstairs again, the guests had gone. The house was quiet, filled with the soft hum of summer night through open windows. Vincent pulled Sarah into the living room, slow dancing without music, bodies pressed close. "I love you," he said against her lips, "every day more." "And I love you," she answered, kissing him deeply. Their embrace turned heated, passionate as always, but now grounded in years of trust and shared joy. Later, lying tangled in bed, moonlight spilling across them, Vincent traced the curve of her shoulder. "We made it," he murmured, "through everything." Sarah smiled, eyes shining. "We did, and we'll keep making it, every day." Their love, fierce, redemptive, unbreakable, had overcome poverty and power, danger and despair. It proved that true wealth was measured in compassion, that love crossed every divide of circumstance or past mistakes. Skin color, background, former lives, none of it mattered. Only the choice to love, protect, and grow together. From this story, we take away profound knowledge about forgiveness, knowledge about the strength found in vulnerability, knowledge about second chances, knowledge about sacrifice, and knowledge about the enduring power of family. Each moment offers a lesson in resilience, a lesson in gratitude, a lesson in courage, a lesson in humility, and a lesson in unconditional love. True education comes not from wealth or status, but from the education of the heart, learning to choose love over fear, compassion over pride, family over solitude. To everyone watching this video, may you be blessed with good health, a joyful life, and daily peace. If this story touched you, please subscribe to the channel Alex Truths, like this video, and share it with someone who needs to hear its message. We upload engaging stories every day. Tell us in the comments, how did this story make you feel? Does it connect to anything in your own real life? We read every comment and love hearing the emotions from deep within your hearts. Thank you for watching. See you again in the next video. Disclaimer: all stories on this channel are fictional and created solely for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real people, events, or places is purely coincidental.